on a frigid December morning in 2022, in a quiet neighborhood on the outskirts of Boulder, Colorado. Investigators knocked on the door of a suburban home with a warrant that would finally break open a case that had haunted the community for nearly 4 years. The case centered around Daniel Martinez, a 34-year-old father of 2 who had vanished without a trace in the fall of 2018. For years, search teams had combed the surrounding mountains. Flyers had covered bulletin boards and shop windows, and his family had lived suspended between hope and grief. The woman who answered the door that morning, her face marked by exhaustion and time, had been living just miles from where Daniel disappeared. Inside that house, authorities would uncover answers to questions that had kept an entire town awake at night. But the arrest that followed would do more than solve a mystery. It would force the community to confront a truth they had never wanted to face, that the man everyone had been searching for was never really missing at all. The town of Nederland, Colorado, sits nestled in the Rocky Mountains at an elevation of 8,236 feet, about 17 miles west of Boulder. Population barely 3,000, the kind of place where pickup trucks outnumber sedans, where wood smoke curls from chimneys even in early autumn, and where everyone knows not just your name but your business. The mountains rise on all sides, pine and aspen covering the slopes in a thick blanket that turns gold in September and white by November. Nederland has always attracted a particular kind of person, those seeking solitude, artists, musicians, folks who want to live outside the mainstream. The town hosts an annual Frozen Dead Guy Days festival, celebrating a cryogenically preserved man stored in a tough shed. That detail alone tells you something about the spirit of the place. Independent, quirky, the kind of community where people look out for each other but also respect boundaries, perhaps too much. In the fall of 2018, the Martinez family lived in a 2-story cabin-style home about 3 miles outside the main part of town, down a gravel road that wound through dense forest. Daniel Martinez, 34 years old, worked as a freelance web designer, his office a converted bedroom where he spent long hours on video calls and staring at dual monitors. His wife, Rebecca Martinez, 32, had been a nurse at Boulder Community Health, but had left her position 2 years earlier to stay home with their children. They had 2, Emma, age 7, and Sophie, age 4. To neighbors who saw them at the general store or the Nederland Community Center, they seemed like any other young family trying to make it work in an expensive state. In a town where charm came with the price tag of isolation and long commutes. The morning of October 14, 2018 began like most others in that part of Colorado in mid-autumn. The sun rose at 7:02 a.m., casting long shadows through the pines. The temperature hovered around 38 degrees. Rebecca Martinez woke before 6, as she always did, and started coffee in the kitchen while the house remained dark and quiet. Daniel had been up late the night before, she would later tell investigators, working on a project for a client in California. She did not wake him. Instead, she got the girls ready for school, packing lunches, braiding Emma's hair, helping Sophie find her backpack that always seemed to disappear overnight. The school bus stop was a quarter mile down the road, at the intersection with Peak to Peak Highway. Rebecca walked both girls down at 7:45 a.m., holding Sophie's hand while Emma skipped ahead, her purple jacket bright against the autumn browns and grays. Clear's throat, a neighbor, Patricia Knowles, who lived in the only other house visible from the Martinez property, saw Rebecca walking back up the gravel road alone at approximately 7:52 a.m. She remembered because she was leaving for her shift at the Nederland library and checked her dashboard clock, worried she might be running late. She waved. Rebecca waved back. Nothing seemed unusual. Patricia would replay that wave in her mind thousands of times in the years that followed, searching for something, anything, that might have signaled what was about to unfold. Rebecca entered the house at 7:55 a.m. The coffee pot was still half full. Daniel's truck, a 2015 silver Toyota Tacoma, sat in the driveway where it had been the night before. Inside, the house was still quiet. She climbed the stairs to the bedroom she shared with Daniel. The curtains were drawn. The room smelled like sleep and the cedar from the walls. She would later say she assumed he was still sleeping, that she considered waking him but decided against it. She went back downstairs, poured another cup of coffee, and sat at the kitchen table with her laptop, scrolling through social media and local news. At 9:17 a.m., according to phone records later obtained by investigators, Rebecca called Daniel's cell phone. It rang from somewhere upstairs. No answer. She called again at 9:33 a.m. Again, no answer. At 10:41 a.m., she sent a text message. "Are you awake?" No response. At 11:02 a.m., she climbed the stairs again and opened the bedroom door fully. Daniel Martinez was not in the bed. The comforter was pulled back on his side, the pillow still dented from where his head had rested. His cell phone sat on the nightstand, screen dark. His wallet was there too, along with his car keys. Rebecca checked the bathroom, empty. She checked his office. The computers were in sleep mode, the chair pushed in neatly. She called his name, her voice echoing through the house. Nothing. She checked the basement, a partially finished space they used for storage. Not there. She went outside, walked around the property, checking the woodshed, the small detached garage, the area near the propane tanks. His truck had not moved. The leaves that had fallen on the hood overnight were still there, undisturbed. At 11:47 a.m., Rebecca Martinez called 911. The recording of that call, later obtained by local media, captured a woman who sounded confused more than panicked. Her voice was steady, almost flat. She told the dispatcher that her husband was missing, that he had been in bed that morning but now was not in the house, not anywhere on the property, and his truck was still there. His phone and wallet still inside. The dispatcher asked standard questions. Had they argued? No. Did he have any medical conditions? No. Any reason he might leave on foot? She could not think of any. The dispatcher said someone would come out to take a report. Boulder County Sheriff's Deputy Michael Brennan arrived at the Martinez residence at 12:34 p.m. He would later write in his report that Rebecca met him in the driveway, wearing jeans and a gray sweater, her dark hair pulled back in a ponytail. She appeared calm, he noted, her hands steady as she gestured toward the house. She walked him through everything. The morning routine, the walk to the bus stop, coming back to find him gone. Deputy Brennan asked if he could look around. She agreed immediately, showing him each room. In the bedroom, Brennan noted the unmade bed, the phone on the nightstand. He asked if anything seemed out of place. She said no. Everything looked normal except that Daniel was not there. Clear as throat, Brennan asked about the couple's relationship. Were things okay between them? Rebecca paused, then nodded. Fine, she said. Normal. He asked about friends, family, anyone Daniel might have gone to see. She mentioned a few names, people from town, some colleagues who lived in Boulder. Brennan took notes, his pen scratching against the paper in the quiet house. He asked if Daniel had ever disappeared before, even for a few hours. No, never. Did he have hobbies that might take him into the mountains, hiking or climbing? Sometimes, she said, but not without telling her, and not without his truck. Deputy Brennan walked the property himself, his boots crunching on the gravel and fallen leaves. He checked the tree line, looking for any sign someone had walked into the forest. Nothing obvious. He returned to his vehicle and called for additional units. By 2:15 p.m., 3 more deputies had arrived, along with a search and rescue coordinator from the county. The coordinator, a man named James Trujillo, with 20 years of experience finding lost hikers and hunters, interviewed Rebecca again, asking about Daniel's clothing, his shoes, anything that might help. She said she thought he had been wearing a white t-shirt and gray sweatpants when she last saw him sleeping. No jacket, no shoes by the door were missing. Trujillo found that detail troubling. The temperature outside was in the low 40s, dropping fast as afternoon turned toward evening. If Daniel had walked away from the house, he would have been underdressed for the conditions. Trujillo organized a preliminary search of the immediate area, teams of 2 deputies each, walking grid patterns through the forest surrounding the property. They called Daniel's name. Their voices carried through the trees, unanswered except by the wind. By nightfall, the search had expanded. Word had spread through Nederland the way news always does in small towns, through text messages and social media posts, through conversations at the general store and the coffee shop. By 6:00 p.m., more than 40 volunteers had gathered at the Nederland Community Center, which had been set up as a command post. Trujillo briefed them. A local man, 34 years old, possibly disoriented, possibly injured, last seen wearing light clothing, missing since sometime that morning. He distributed maps, assigned sectors, handed out walkie-talkies and flashlights. The volunteers, many of them experienced in mountain search and rescue, headed out into the darkness. Rebecca remained at the house with a victim advocate assigned by the sheriff's office, a woman named Linda Chen, who had worked dozens of missing person cases. Chen would later write in her notes that Rebecca seemed composed but withdrawn, sitting at the kitchen table, hands wrapped around a mug of tea that had gone cold. When volunteers stopped by the house to check in or ask questions, Rebecca answered politely, thanked them for their help. Chen noted that Rebecca did not cry, did not pace, did not exhibit the kind of frantic energy Chen had come to expect from family members in the first hours of a disappearance. The search continued through the night and into the next day. Helicopters from the Colorado Division of Fire Prevention and Control flew grid patterns over the forest, their thermal imaging cameras scanning for any heat signature that might indicate a person. Ground teams expanded their radius to 5 miles, then 7, then 10. They searched abandoned cabins, old mining sites, creek beds, ravines. Dogs were brought in, given Daniel's scent from clothing Rebecca provided. The dogs alerted near the house, but then lost the trail within 100 yards, as if Daniel had simply vanished into the air. Those who knew him said Daniel was not the type to wander off. He was methodical, careful, a man who planned his days and kept schedules. His friends described him as quiet, introverted, someone who preferred the company of his family to large social gatherings. His parents, who lived in Denver and had driven up as soon as they heard, told investigators that Daniel had been happy, that he loved his daughters, that there was no reason he would leave. They sat in the living room of the Martinez house, his mother weeping, his father staring at the wall, while Rebecca moved through the rooms like a ghost, tidying things that did not need to be tidied. On the 3rd day, investigators began to look more closely at the timeline. They obtained phone records, credit card statements, social media activity. Daniel's phone had last pinged a cell tower at 11:47 p.m. on October 13, the night before he disappeared. After that, nothing. No calls, no texts, no data usage. His credit cards had not been used. His bank accounts showed no withdrawals. It was as if he had ceased to exist at midnight. Deputies whispered quietly among themselves about the things that did not add up. Why would a man leave his house in the middle of the night or early morning without his phone, his wallet, his keys, his shoes? Where would he go? How far could he get on foot in freezing temperatures, wearing only sweatpants and a t-shirt? And if something had happened to him on the property, if he had fallen or suffered some medical event. Why had the dogs not found him? On the fifth day, investigators conducted a more thorough search of the house itself. They brought in cadaver dogs, despite Rebecca's protests that it seemed premature, disrespectful even. The dogs went room to room, their handlers watching for any alert. In the basement, one of the dogs showed interest near a section of concrete floor near the furnace. The handler noted it, but the alert was not strong enough to warrant further action. They moved on. The dog alerted nowhere else. Investigators also began to examine the dynamics of the Martinez marriage more carefully. They interviewed neighbors, friends, family members. Most said the couple seemed fine, normal, no obvious problems, but a few people mentioned small things. Daniel's brother said Daniel had mentioned feeling stressed about money, that freelance work was inconsistent, and Rebecca's decision to stop working had put pressure on their finances. A neighbor who sometimes walked her dog past the Martinez property said she had heard raised voices coming from the house a few times over the summer, though she could not make out words. Rebecca's former co-worker from the hospital said Rebecca had seemed unhappy in the months before she quit, that she had talked about feeling trapped. Though the co-worker had assumed she meant trapped in the job, not the marriage. Clear's throat, Detective Sarah Kimball, the lead investigator assigned to the case, sat down with Rebecca on October 22, 8 days after Daniel's disappearance. The interview took place at the sheriff's office in Boulder, a sterile room with gray walls and a table bolted to the floor. Kimball, a 20-year veteran with a reputation for patience and thoroughness, began with gentle questions. How was Rebecca holding up? Was she sleeping, eating? Rebecca said she was doing her best for the girls. Kimball asked about the morning Daniel disappeared. Could Rebecca walk through it again, step by step? Rebecca repeated what she had told Deputy Brennan, woke up early, made coffee, got the girls ready, walked them to the bus, came back, did not see Daniel, assumed he was sleeping. Later called for him, found him gone. Kimball listened, taking notes, nodding. Then she asked about the night before, what had happened that evening. Rebecca said it had been normal, dinner. Baths for the girls, bedtime stories. Daniel had been in his office working. She had watched television in the living room. She went to bed around 10. Daniel came to bed later. She did not know exactly when. She had been asleep. Kimball asked if Rebecca had woken at all during the night. Rebecca paused, then said maybe once briefly, but she had fallen back asleep. She did not remember Daniel being in bed, but she assumed he was. Kimball asked gently if there was any possibility Daniel had left on his own, that he needed space or time away. Rebecca said no, absolutely not. He would never leave his daughters, never. Kimball asked if they had been arguing. Rebecca hesitated. A long silence filled the room. Then she admitted that yes, they had been fighting more recently, about money. About Daniel working all the time. About her wanting to go back to work but not being able to afford childcare. Normal marital stress, she said. Nothing that would make him leave. Kimball asked about the night of October 13 specifically. Had they argued that night? Rebecca said no. Everything had been fine. Kimball asked if Daniel had seemed upset or worried about anything. Rebecca said no, he had been focused on his work, the project for the California client. Kimball asked what time Rebecca had gone to bed. Around 10, she said again. And when did Daniel come to bed? She did not know, she had been asleep. Kimball shifted. She asked about the basement. Had anything been stored down there recently, moved around, changed? Rebecca seemed confused by the question. No, she said, it was just storage, old furniture, boxes. Why? Kimball said they were just trying to be thorough. She asked if she could see Rebecca's hands. Rebecca extended them across the table, palms down, then palms up. Kimball noted no scratches, no bruises, no marks of any kind. The interview lasted 2 hours. When it ended, Kimball walked Rebecca to the lobby where her mother was waiting. Kimball watched them leave, Rebecca's shoulders hunched forward, her mother's arm around her. Back in her office, Kimball reviewed her notes. Something felt off, but she could not name it. The story was consistent. The timeline made sense, but the emotional affect seemed wrong. Rebecca Martinez did not behave like a woman whose husband had vanished without explanation. She behaved like a woman waiting for something inevitable. As October turned to November, the search scaled back. Volunteers returned to their lives. The helicopters stopped flying. The command center at the community building closed. Daniel Martinez's face remained on flyers stapled to telephone poles and posted in shop windows throughout Nederland and Boulder. His smile frozen in a photograph taken at a family barbecue the previous summer. The Boulder County Sheriff's Office kept the case active but reassigned most of the personnel to other investigations. Detective Kimball continued to follow leads, but they were growing cold. On November 19, Kimball received a call from a forensic analyst who had been reviewing the phone records more carefully. There was something odd. On the night of October 13, Rebecca's phone had been in airplane mode from 10:37 p.m. until 6:52 a.m. the next morning. People put their phones in airplane mode sometimes, the analyst said, but it was unusual to do so for that many hours. And it meant there was no way to track her location or activity during that window. Kimball asked for Rebecca's previous phone records. In the 3 months prior, Rebecca had never put her phone in airplane mode overnight. Not once. Kimball filed that detail away, added it to the growing list of things that did not quite fit. But it was not enough for an arrest, not even enough for a search warrant. Without a body, without physical evidence, without a witness, there was nothing to charge Rebecca Martinez with except being a wife whose husband had disappeared. By December, the case had faded from the local news. The Martinez family held a small memorial service at a church in Nederland, though they did not call it a funeral because there was no body to bury. Friends and neighbors attended, filling the pews, singing hymns, sharing memories of Daniel. Rebecca sat in the front row with Emma and Sophie on either side of her, the girls silent and still. When it was over, people approached to offer condolences. Rebecca thanked them quietly, her face blank. The case went cold. For those who have ever doubted someone you love, who have felt the ground shift beneath a relationship you thought was solid, you know that uncertainty can be more painful than truth. In the months after Daniel Martinez disappeared, his family existed in a kind of limbo. He was not confirmed dead, but he was not alive either. He was simply absent, a space at the dinner table, a name the girls whispered at night. Rebecca and the girls moved in January 2019, leaving the cabin in Nederland for a townhouse in Boulder. She told people it was too hard to stay in the house, that everywhere she looked she saw Daniel, that the isolation was too much for the girls. She got a job at a clinic, working part-time as a nurse again. The girls started at a new school. Life moved forward, or something that resembled life. Clear's throat, but those who knew Rebecca during those years said she seemed hollowed out, going through motions. She dropped the girls at school, went to work, came home, made dinner, put the girls to bed. She did not date, she did not socialize, she existed. Her mother, who visited often, told a friend that Rebecca seemed to be waiting for something, though she could not say what. Emma, the older daughter, began having nightmares. She would wake screaming, calling for her father. Rebecca would hold her, rocking her back to sleep, whispering that everything was okay even though nothing was okay. Emma started drawing pictures at school, dark images that concerned her teachers. In one, a figure lay on the ground, covered by a black shape. The teacher showed it to the school counselor, who called Rebecca in for a meeting. Rebecca said Emma was processing trauma, that it was normal. The counselor suggested therapy. Rebecca agreed but never followed through. Sophie, younger and less able to articulate what she had lost, became clingy. She refused to let Rebecca out of her sight, screaming if Rebecca went to another room. She stopped talking about her father, as if by not naming him she could make the absence less real. At preschool, she would sit alone, playing with toys but not engaging with other children. Teachers noted her silence in reports that would later become part of the investigation file. Rebecca's marriage to Daniel, already strained before his disappearance, became a ghost marriage. She still wore her wedding ring. She still listed herself as married on forms. But in the quiet of the townhouse, when the girls were asleep and the only sound was the hum of the refrigerator, Rebecca would sit at the kitchen table and stare at nothing. Neighbors in the complex said they sometimes saw her light on at 3 in the morning, a shadow moving behind the curtains. In July 2020, Daniel's parents filed a petition to have him declared legally dead. Colorado law requires a 7-year waiting period for such declarations, but exceptions can be made in cases where disappearance is unexplained and the person has not been heard from. The petition was denied. Not enough time had passed, not enough evidence of death. The limbo continued. During this time, Detective Kimball had not forgotten the case. She reviewed the file periodically, looking for something she might have missed. She drove out to the old Martinez property a few times, walking the grounds, standing in the places Daniel would have stood. She interviewed Rebecca twice more, both times with Rebecca's lawyer present. The conversations were cordial but unproductive. Rebecca maintained she had no idea what had happened to her husband. In March 2021, 2.5 years after Daniel's disappearance, Emma Martinez, now 10 years old, began seeing a therapist. The therapist, Dr. Lisa Hernandez, specialized in childhood trauma. Emma's nightmares had not stopped, and her behavior at school had become more concerning. She was withdrawing from friends, her grades were slipping, and she had started having panic attacks. Dr. Hernandez used play therapy, allowing Emma to express herself through dolls and drawings rather than words. Over several sessions, a pattern emerged. Emma would play out scenarios where a father figure would disappear, sometimes hidden, sometimes buried. Dr. Hernandez documented these sessions carefully, noting the repetition and the intensity. In their 8th session, Emma said something that made Dr. Hernandez pause. Using a small doll to represent her father, Emma placed it on the floor and covered it with a blanket. Then she said, "He sleeps downstairs now, he won't wake up." Dr. Hernandez asked gently where downstairs was. Emma said, "The old house, the basement." Dr. Hernandez asked what Emma meant. Emma went quiet, retreating into herself. She would not speak about it again that session. Dr. Hernandez was bound by confidentiality, but also by mandated reporting laws. If a child was in danger or if there was evidence of a crime, she was required to report it. She consulted with her supervisor. They agreed the statement was concerning but ambiguous. Emma was clearly processing something, but was it memory or fantasy? Children who have experienced trauma often create narratives to explain the unexplainable. Without more concrete information, they decided to continue therapy and monitor, but Dr. Hernandez documented everything. And in May 2021, when Emma made another statement, this one more specific, Dr. Hernandez knew she had to act. During a session, Emma had drawn a picture of the basement in the old house. She drew the furnace, the concrete floor, and a dark rectangle in the corner. Dr. Hernandez asked what the rectangle was. Emma said, "That is where Mommy put Daddy." Then she started to cry and would not say more. Dr. Hernandez contacted the Boulder County Department of Human Services that same day. A caseworker was assigned to interview Emma. The caseworker, trained in forensic interviewing of children, met with Emma at a neutral location, a child advocacy center designed to be non-threatening. The interview was recorded. Emma, small for her age, sat in a chair too big for her feet not touching the floor. The caseworker asked Emma to tell her about her old house. Emma described the cabin in Nederland, the trees, her room. The caseworker asked about her dad. Emma's face changed, her expression shuddering. She said she missed him. The caseworker asked when she last saw him. Emma said a long time ago. The caseworker asked if she remembered the day he went away. Emma nodded. The caseworker asked her to tell the story. Emma said she had been sleeping. She woke up because she heard noises, loud noises, like fighting. She got out of bed and went to the hallway. She saw her mom at the top of the stairs. Her mom was crying. Emma asked what was wrong. Her mom told her to go back to bed. Emma said she was scared. Her mom said everything was okay, that Daddy had to go away for a while. Emma asked where. Her mom said just away. The caseworker asked if Emma saw her dad that night. Emma shook her head. But then, after a pause, she said she saw him the next day. The caseworker asked where. Emma said in the basement. The caseworker asked why he was in the basement. Emma said Mommy said he was sleeping. The caseworker asked if Emma went down to see him. Emma nodded. She said Mommy took her down. He was on the floor, he was not moving. Mommy said not to touch him, that he needed to rest. The caseworker asked if Emma was sure this was a real memory or maybe a dream. Emma insisted it was real. She remembered the cold of the basement, the smell, the way her father's hand looked, pale and still. The caseworker asked when this happened. Emma said the morning before school, before the bus came. She remembered because she wore her purple jacket and it was cold outside. Clears throat. The interview lasted 45 minutes. When it was over, the caseworker immediately contacted the Boulder County Sheriff's Office. Detective Kimball was called in. She watched the recording of Emma's interview 3 times, her expression unchanging. Then she began making calls. On May 18, 2021, nearly 3 years after Daniel Martinez disappeared, Detective Kimball obtained a search warrant for the property in Nederland. The cabin had been sold to new owners, a retired couple from Denver who had bought it in late 2019. Kimball contacted them, explained the situation, asked for permission to excavate the basement. They were shocked but cooperative. A forensic team arrived at the property on May 20. They brought ground-penetrating radar, cadaver dogs, excavation equipment. The new owners moved out for the duration of the search. The dogs were brought into the basement first. Both dogs alerted in the same area, near the furnace, where one dog had shown mild interest during the original search in 2018. The radar showed an anomaly in the concrete, a rectangular shape approximately 6 feet long and 3 feet wide, buried about 2 feet below the surface. On May 21, the team began to excavate. They worked carefully, documenting every layer of concrete and soil. By late afternoon, they had reached something. Fabric, a blanket deteriorated but still recognizable. And beneath the blanket, human remains. The medical examiner confirmed the remains were those of Daniel Martinez, identified through dental records. The cause of death was blunt force trauma to the head, multiple impacts, consistent with being struck with a heavy object. The manner of death was ruled a homicide. The remains had been wrapped in a blanket and a tarp, then buried in a shallow grave that had been filled with fresh concrete. On May 23, 2021, Detective Kimball and 2 other officers arrived at Rebecca Martinez's townhouse in Boulder with a warrant for her arrest. It was 6:47 a.m. Rebecca answered the door in her bathrobe, her hair disheveled from sleep. Kimball read her rights. Rebecca did not speak. She did not cry. She simply nodded, as if she had been expecting this moment for 3 years. She was taken into custody and charged with first-degree murder and tampering with a deceased human body. The girls were placed temporarily with Daniel's parents. The arrest made headlines across Colorado. The community of Nederland, which had searched for Daniel, which had held vigils and fundraisers, felt betrayed and horrified. How had she lived among them knowing? How had she looked his parents in the eye? How had she let her daughters believe their father had simply vanished? The trial began in March 2022. The prosecution laid out a timeline constructed from Emma's testimony, forensic evidence, and circumstantial details that had seemed insignificant at the time, but now formed a damning picture. They argued that Rebecca and Daniel had fought on the night of October 13, 2018, that the fight had escalated, and that Rebecca had struck Daniel multiple times with a fireplace poker found hidden in the attic of the old cabin, an item the new owners had discovered and turned over to investigators. The poker had traces of blood on it, DNA matched to Daniel. The prosecution presented evidence that Rebecca had spent the hours between midnight and dawn on October 14, wrapping Daniel's body, digging a shallow grave in the basement floor where the concrete had recently been poured for a utility upgrade, and burying him. Then she had cleaned the scene, disposed of evidence, and called 911 nearly 12 hours later. The airplane mode on her phone had prevented any electronic trail of her movements or communications during those critical hours. Rebecca's defense attorney argued that the case was built on the testimony of a traumatized child whose memories could not be trusted, that Emma had been influenced by therapy and leading questions, that the forensic evidence was circumstantial. They pointed out that there were no witnesses to the alleged fight, no one who heard or saw anything. They suggested that someone else could have killed Daniel, that Rebecca had discovered his body and panicked, making a terrible decision to hide it rather than report it out of fear she would be blamed. The jury deliberated for 4 days. On March 28, 2022, they returned a verdict, guilty on both counts. Rebecca Martinez showed no reaction as the verdict was read. She sat motionless, her hands folded in her lap. Behind her, Daniel's parents wept. Emma and Sophie were not in the courtroom. They were at school, living with their grandparents, trying to build a life from the ruins of the one their mother had destroyed. At sentencing in June 2022, the judge called the crime calculated and cruel, noting that Rebecca had not only taken Daniel's life, but had robbed her daughters of their father and their sense of safety. Rebecca was sentenced to life in prison, without the possibility of parole. The case drew national attention, featured on true crime podcasts and television shows, dissected by legal analysts and psychologists. People asked the same questions. Why? What had driven a nurse, a mother, to such an act? The answer, as much as there was one, seemed to lie in the toxic combination of financial stress, marital resentment, and a moment of rage that spiraled beyond control. But Rebecca never spoke publicly about what happened that night. She never confessed, never explained. She maintained through her attorney that she was innocent, that the jury had gotten it wrong. In December 2022, acting on information from an anonymous source, investigators made a second visit to Rebecca's former residence. The anonymous letter, sent to Detective Kimball, suggested that Rebecca had not acted alone, that someone had helped her. The letter provided details only someone with direct knowledge could know. Investigators followed the lead to a woman named Jessica Ortega, who had been Rebecca's close friend and had lived in Nederland in 2018. Under questioning, Ortega broke. She admitted that Rebecca had called her in the early morning hours of October 14, hysterical, saying that something terrible had happened. Ortega had gone to the house. She had seen Daniel's body. Rebecca had begged for help. Ortega, out of loyalty and fear, had helped Rebecca bury him and clean the scene. She had kept the secret for 4 years, the weight of it destroying her health, her relationships, her sense of self. On December 11, 2022, Jessica Ortega was arrested and charged as an accessory after the fact. Her arrest shocked those who knew her, a quiet woman who volunteered at the animal shelter and taught yoga. The charges highlighted how even good people can be pulled into the orbit of a crime, how loyalty can become complicity. Ortega pleaded guilty in exchange for a reduced sentence. She was sentenced to 8 years in prison. At her sentencing hearing, she addressed the court, her voice shaking. She said she thought about Daniel every day, that she was sorry, that she knew sorry was not enough. She said she had been terrified and had made the worst decision of her life. The judge noted that while Ortega had not committed the murder, her actions had prevented justice for years and had prolonged the agony of Daniel's family. The two women who had conspired to hide a man's death, who had led a community search for someone they knew was buried beneath concrete, were both now in prison. The shock of Ortega's involvement rippled through Nederland again, a second wave of betrayal. Emma and Sophie Martinez, now 11 and 8, continue to live with their paternal grandparents. They are in therapy, working through trauma that most adults could not fathom. Their father is gone. Their mother is in prison. The life they knew ended on a cold October night they were too young to understand. The best anyone can hope for them is healing, a future not defined entirely by what was taken from them. The case of Daniel Martinez is a reminder that the most dangerous place can be the home, that the people we trust the most can harbor the darkest secrets. It is a reminder that children see more than we think, remember more than we wish, and carry burdens far too heavy for their small shoulders. It is a reminder that justice, even when it comes, cannot undo what has been done. For the community of Nederland, the case left scars that may never fully heal. The town that had come together to search for one of their own had to confront the reality that the person they should have been looking at was the one who reported him missing. Trust, once broken on that scale, is not easily repaired. Detective Kimball, who worked the case for 4 years, said in an interview after the trial that she had never stopped believing they would find the truth. She said cases like this stay with you, that you think about them at night, that you owe it to the victim to never give up. She said Daniel Martinez deserved justice, and even though it took years, he finally got it. Daniel Martinez was 34 years old when he died. He was a father who loved his daughters, a son who called his parents every Sunday, a man whose life was cut short in a moment of violence and then hidden away as if he had never existed. But he did exist, he mattered, and now finally his story has been told. If this story mattered to you, subscribe and hit the bell, share the episode. Someone somewhere may still be waiting to be heard. Claude is AI and can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.